Well, thank you for joining us for another episode of Marking the Times. This is an exciting time of year as Christmas is upon us. I love this time of year. Between really Thanksgiving and the beginning of the year is my favorite time of the year, and I'm sure it is for many of you as well. And while we love to talk about Bible prophecy and answer questions related to that here on Marking the Times, I thought it'd be appropriate for this episode to talk about Christmas. And that's what I love to talk about this time of year. I love gathering together with God's people. I love our Christmas Eve candlelight services. And really my favorite story of the Christmas season is the story of the three wise men, or what are often called the three wise men, the visit of the Magi. And it's found in Matthew chapter 2, verses 1 through 11. And this is a great chapter, and really a lot of things I'm going to talk about, I'm sure many of you know already, but there may be a couple things in here that I'll share that maybe will be helpful for you as you think about the Christmas story this time of year. But really what you have in this passage is three responses to Christmas. In fact, I preached a message on this a couple of years ago called First Responders, because really we have the initial responses to Christmas, and really these are still the responses we see today. With King Herod, we see the response of antagonism. He's antagonistic to Christ, and a lot of people are still like that today. With the Jewish leaders, we see the response of apathy. They're very apathetic towards the coming of Jesus. They won't even go 5 miles to Bethlehem to see if the reports that they've heard are true. And then we have the response of the wise men, that's adoration. They come from far away, probably from somewhere maybe in modern-day Iraq. They're at Babylon, maybe from Parthia, which would be in modern-day Iran. But they come from hundreds of miles away to come to see the Christ child. A couple things, though, about the wise men I think are interesting. First of all, we don't know for sure there were three of them. They bring the gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh, and so people have always assumed there were three wise men. They were even named. They were Balthazar, Melchior, and Gaspar. One of them was older, one was middle-aged, one is younger, as you kind of see in church history. We don't know for sure there were three of them. There wouldn't have just been three men either. They would have had a large retinue of servants and camels with them as they came. So that's probably why Herod was kind of upset and fearful when they showed up there. They would have had a large group with them. Also, about the wise men, most of you probably again know this, but when we see the nativity scenes, the wise men are always there, and the wise men actually didn't come till later. Again, I understand the nativity scenes, and when we see reproductions or plays at schools or churches, how the wise men always come. You can't have the wise men come 6 months or a year later. You have a part two. So we kind of do it all together, and I understand that. That's not a problem. But if you read the passage, it's clear that the wise men came somewhat later. I'll just mention a couple reasons. In Matthew chapter 2, verse 1, it says, "Now after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, Magi from the east arrived in Jerusalem." So it's after Jesus is born. Now, it doesn't say here how much after, but it's clearly after he's born. Then when we come down to verse 11, it says that after coming into the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother. So by this time, Jesus is in a house, living somewhere there in the city of Bethlehem. And also the word child that's used here is a different word than the word used in Luke chapter 2 that's used more of an infant. Now, the word that's used here is a pretty flexible word. We don't want to get too strict on that, but it is a different word that could emphasize the fact that Jesus is a bit older. And I think the most telling point about this is, over in Luke chapter 2, Mary and Joseph go to Jerusalem 42 days after Jesus is born for Mary's purification and to present Jesus there in the temple. And you read about that in Luke chapter 2, beginning in verse 21. And it says, "When he was 8 days old, before his circumcision, his name was called Jesus, the name given by the angel, before he was conceived in the womb. And when the days for their purification, according to the law of Moses, were completed, they brought him to Jerusalem to present him to the Lord." Again, this was 42 days, would be after he was born. And it says, "As it is written in the law of the Lord, every firstborn male that opens the womb shall be called holy to the Lord. And to offer a sacrifice according to what was said in the law, a pair of turtle doves or 2 young pigeons." So the offering 6 weeks after Jesus is born that Mary and Joseph give, which is a pair of turtle doves and 2 young pigeons, was the gift that poor people gave. And if Mary and Joseph had already received the gold, the frankincense, and the myrrh, they certainly would have given the best gift they could possibly give to the Lord at that time. So that's evidence to me the wise men came at least 6 weeks after Jesus was born. And we don't know how long after that. It could be 6 months, even maybe up to a year later that they came. But it was sometime later that the wise men came to visit Jesus and Joseph and Mary. But I just close with this as a good devotional thought for us. The wise men came and they adored Jesus. They gave their time. They traveled a long way to get there and a long way to get back home. And they gave their treasure. And really, when you boil Christmas down, Christmas is about worship. We do a lot of other things at Christmas, but I want to encourage all of you to take some time to get alone by yourself, or maybe go to a Christmas Eve service and take time to worship the Lord Jesus Christ. Because really, when you boil it all down, that's what really Christmas is all about. Well, God bless you. Hope you have a Merry Christmas. We'll see you next time.